That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, we're going to go through and continue to smash these buy low players. I think we've had so much success as of late, especially at the running back position, buying Ezekiel Elliott low after week 1, buying Saquon Barkley low after week 2. Let's go through and let's look at the wide receivers. And what we are going to be trying to accomplish is go look at the players that we know historically, based on their NFL careers so far, based on the prospects they were coming in, that they have the talent profile to succeed if they are given the role in their offense and the volume that they have. And then we're going to be looking at those players that have had that volume, but maybe the efficiency isn't there so far, understanding that efficiency kind of goes up and down as the season goes through. And then we can try to identify those low points where we're buying those players now, possibly sell them high later, possibly ride out the production. But of course, before we get into it, we are going to have to go through, pick out some winners to win our Fantasy Flock Network hats for this video. We give out multiple Fantasy Flock Network hats every single video. Make sure y'all go down there, subscribe, drop a like on the video, and leave a comment to get entered. And here, our first one coming out from a longtime supporter of the channel. Lank Dog says, "You demand, brother. Happy early birthday." Thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate it. And our next comment going to be coming out from Dylan Lombardi, who says, "Thanks for the fantasy advice, 4-0. Congrats, my friend." Saying, "Also, I'd love a hat, bro. Keep up the good work." No, thank you so much for supporting the channel. Of course, just go through and email me with the email in the description of the video if you win that hat with your physical address, so I can send that out ASAP. And also, if y'all want daily additional entries to win a Fantasy Flock Network hat from here to the end of the season, the best way you can do that is go and deposit $10 on Underdog Fantasy, where we're doing our mid-season drafts, where there's also a ton of player props that we have crushed every single week. Made $1,000 last week on these player props. Go through, use promo code FLOCK, deposit $10, get a max deposit bonus. At the same time, you get daily additional entries to win a Fantasy Flock Network hat. And if we get 10,000 signups on Underdog Fantasy, they said that they will fly people to Tampa, Florida to go to a Bucs game with me, to go to the Florida Flock meetup. I am 100% sure that they said that thinking there was no chance that we got it done. But please show them how strong the flock is. There's nothing that supports this channel more than going through and making that $10 deposit on Underdog Fantasy. Please go take advantage of that offer. Support this show more than you would ever believe. I mean, if you enjoy us live streaming every night, if you enjoy multiple videos a day, there's no better way to show us. Now, our first wide receiver here is going to be Calvin Ridley. And with Calvin Ridley, I mean, we talked about him this past week. This is a wide receiver that I think we need to be going through and aggressively targeting in trade. You're looking at him as right now the wide receiver 28 so far on the season. So yes, wide receiver 28. It's been majorly disappointing. Pretty much anybody who drafted him at the beginning of the second round. And I'm not going to lie. I mean, here with Calvin Ridley, this was a player I was completely fine drafting at the beginning of the second round. I was saying that he did have the upside to be the wide receiver 1 overall. Now, of course, we can never rank him there. I mean, it was completely understandable seeing someone wanting to draft him at the beginning of the second, as you were viewing him as now with no Julio Jones in this offense, as the first time where he could afford to go out there and be the alpha wide receiver in his offense. And if you go through, Thomas, please throw up the graphic. And if you remove the games that he only played 50% of the snaps or less this past season, Calvin Ridley was the wide receiver 2 on a points per game basis this past year, regardless of if Julio Jones was playing or not. We have seen historically that Calvin Ridley is a very talented player so far in his NFL career, still in his prime. There's no reason to go through and expect that he is going to be someone taking a step back. He was in that same draft class with DJ Moore. Now, yes, he's a lot older than DJ Moore, but that was more so because Calvin Ridley stayed in high school for whatever reason. But anyway, so far the opportunity has been there for Calvin Ridley. I mean, he's had 42 targets, 27 receptions, 255 yards, and a touchdown. Now, the efficiency hasn't been there on a per target basis, but if you look historically on what you've had with his career, I think it should be. Now, of course, I mean, this Atlanta Falcons offense, it's looked really bad. It's looked horrendous with Matt Ryan and also Arthur Smith, new coaching staff coming in. I think it's understandable, though, that if you're looking at a team with the new coaching staff coming in, that maybe it takes a little bit of time for them to be able to implement the offense that they want, to be able to fit these players into that offense and make everything work. And if you're looking at this situation, I mean, with Cordell Patterson, I know that he has been the running back 2 so far this year. I know that he has been fantastic if you picked him up off the waiver wire and started him this past week. So I know a lot of people are going to even hate me for bringing this up, but he's not scoring over a touchdown a game. It's not going to continue to happen throughout the rest of the year. You're going to see significant regression from Cordell Patterson. I think that will be going in the direction of Calvin Ridley with his red zone role. We know Calvin Ridley really isn't like Julio Jones. Julio Jones historically wasn't scoring touchdowns at a high rate on a per target basis. We've seen that Calvin Ridley does have that capability. So if he's right now averaging over 10 targets a game, there's no reason at all. I mean, trust me, I have not moved Calvin Ridley down our rest of season rankings one single spot. I mean, this has been someone that we're going to keep on having here as he's demanding that volume, as you would naturally assume that he's going to continue to get better. And this Atlanta Falcons schedule is about to open up over the next 3 weeks. I mean, yes, one of the weeks has a bye week, but here you also have them going up against the New York Jets and the Miami Dolphins. So I would imagine that these would be two easily winnable matchups for the Atlanta Falcons, playing against soft defenses where they are easily able to move the ball down the field, and that will be done through Calvin Ridley. And also one other player that we have to bring up here, and I know he's not technically a wide receiver, but he's playing like he's a receiver, Kyle Pitts. Now with Kyle Pitts, if you are a longtime viewer of the channel, you know that Kyle Pitts was one of our number one top avoids this season. We are going through and saying, do not draft Kyle Pitts anywhere. It was ludicrous that you actually had TJ Hawkinson and Mark Andrews going considerably behind Kyle Pitts, and Kyle Pitts in the 4th round made no sense at all if you were looking historically with what you should expect from these rookie tight end prospects. As while, yes, Kyle Pitts was the best rookie tight end prospect of all time, he would have literally had to be the best rookie tight end of all time for him to return value on the investment that you made in the 4th round. So I was going through and I was telling everybody to avoid him. And I know right now where Kyle Pitts is a mid tight end 2, he's like the tight end 17. It would make a lot of sense for me to go, oh, look at me. I'm so smart. Look, I knew exactly what was going on. No. Honestly, I'm the first person to go through and run some victory laps and try to act like I'm the smartest person in the room, but that's not the case here with Kyle Pitts. I think so far through the first 4 weeks, if anything, the people that were willing to draft Kyle Pitts in that range over TJ Hawkinson, I don't want to say they were right, but I'm a lot more willing to now go through and look at their side of the situation and why they were going through and making that selection. And I think the process, I don't want to say it was right, but it wasn't wrong. And here with Kyle Pitts, essentially the argument to be made is that he is not getting used as a prototypical tight end in this Atlanta Falcons offense. If anything, if you just view him as a wide receiver and that's how he's getting used in this offense, I mean, it would make you very excited in just understanding that if he comes out, has a CD Lamb rookie season, has a T Higgins rookie season, I mean, of course, Justin Jefferson, that's out of the range of outcomes. But here, if he has a good rookie season for a wide receiver, I mean, he can come out and he can crush as a tight end, knowing the points per game output that you'd expect from a position that's just a complete wasteland. The expectation is going to be so much lower. So with Kyle Pitts, he's kind of getting used as a receiver right now in this Atlanta Falcons offense. He is just now turning 21 years old. He has not played a game so far this season at 21 years old. He's been 20 years old and he's come out so far and he's had 26 targets through 4 weeks. That's 7th in the NFL among all tight ends. He's had 15 receptions, 189 receiving yards. And going back to what we were saying with Kyle Pitts, I mean, you know that he's the best tight end prospect of all time based on his athleticism, based on his size, based on his age-adjusted production at Florida. So I think if you're looking so far, while yes, he doesn't have a single touchdown and it's weighing down his overall fantasy production, there's no reason to expect a player with the size of Kyle Pitts and how he was able to average like a touchdown and a half his final season at Florida at 19 years old. There's no reason to expect that this player can't come out and all of a sudden be that red zone monster for the Atlanta Falcons offense. So yeah, we're going to start it off with a couple Falcons here. And I know that it would be easy for me to come out and just say, I told you, I was right with Kyle Pitts. No, that's not the case at all. I think if anything, I'm kind of lucky that Kyle Pitts has not really found the end zone just yet. He hasn't really had the production just yet because the underlying metrics are saying that it's coming very soon. So while I have Kyle Pitts in none of my leagues, happy about it because we can go trade for him at a discount right now. I think that's something you have to go through and do. I think that 4th round draft price of Kyle Pitts wasn't as bad as we were initially saying, even though right now he's technically like the tight end 17. Okay, so now our next player was another guy on our do not draft list here, Michael Thomas. Now with Michael Thomas, the thesis on why you weren't drafting him in fantasy was very simple. It's, for whatever reason, just the ability to go through and take advantage of the common fantasy football player with how they play the game. It is so damn easy to do. And if I told you, I was like, hey, Johnny, okay, so I'm going to lay out this player for you. he is going to be someone that's not playing until, say, week 5, week 6, week 7. He's not going to be playing until the middle of the year, and you'd be able to go through and you'll be able to trade for him at a pretty sharp discount in week 5. You would only have to give up the equivalent of maybe like an 11th round draft pick in your fantasy draft. Where would you draft that guy before the season starts? I mean, if you have just the smallest ounce of fantasy football wisdom, you'd go, okay, well, this is going to be someone that I'm having to waste a roster spot on for the first month of the season. If his value's just going to be that low by the time he comes back, I mean, why are we willing to even waste that roster spot? Probably I'm not drafting him at all. Maybe I'll spend like in a 12th round selection on him. Well, that's not what happens at all, because the common fantasy football player, when they're in drafts, they're just looking at the entire season. They're not going and trying to segment it, understanding how trades are going to work. So in theory, Michael Thomas, I mean, when you know he's not going to come back till the middle of the season, his value in drafts, when he is that far away from coming back and you're having to waste that roster spot on him and you have the opportunity cost of going through and churning the waiver wire, I mean, his price should be low. And if you check our Patreon rest of season rankings, every single week, even though Michael Thomas isn't doing everything, he's getting raised up those rankings because we had him lower than anybody else coming into the year. But every week that he comes closer to getting returned, I mean, just one spot higher, one spot higher. One spot higher. Obviously not just one spot. We have to go through and we have to figure that out exactly. But the point remains that with Michael Thomas, what you have seen so far is the fantasy draft community go out there, take him in the 7th, 8th round. And right now you're going to be able to pay a discount at that draft price 5 weeks later when you didn't have to hold that roster spot. So in theory, Michael Thomas, you should have had his value coming into drafts this year, starting at an all-time low, and then just slowly rising until we know where he's about to come back. And it's been the opposite. It's been the opposite, where you actually had him down here, and because nobody's talking about him, because he's not at practice, he's not scoring points, his value is going down for whatever reason, even though you knew you weren't going to get points from him. So I know that was more so just me going through and making fun of the common fantasy football player, but it's a spot where you can go through and take advantage of, for whatever reason, the common fantasy football player making a massive mistake. This is someone that was the wide receiver 1 overall in 2019. Now, trust me, I'm very worried about the Jameis Winston-led New Orleans Saints offense, just like you are. But still, this is a no-brainer spot to go out there and buy. You can right now trade someone maybe like Tyler Boyd and go get Michael Thomas, which would be a no-brainer, just knowing that Michael Thomas, he does have it in the range of outcomes. Like, how surprised would you be if Michael Thomas comes back, he's the top 5 wide receiver? Could you be that surprised? I mean, in 2019, he was the wide receiver 1 overall. 2018, he was the wide receiver 6. I don't necessarily think you could be. Okay, so now our next wide receiver is going to be Odell Beckham Jr. He was on our list this past week, and I think that we're going to put him right back on there because if you're looking at the volume and the role that he had in this Cleveland Browns offense, it was exactly what you were looking to see. I mean, here, yes, the production isn't there, mainly because Baker Mayfield was one of the most inaccurate quarterbacks in the entire league this past week, but still, Odell Beckham Jr. was able to command 16 targets, 7 receptions, 104 yards in 2 rushing attempts through the past 2 weeks. Now, if you're looking at the air yards as well, if you're looking at the fantasy points per expectation, I mean, the expectation for Odell Beckham Jr. based on the role in the volume that he had in this offense was vastly ahead of the actual fantasy points at the end of the week, just because the inaccuracy of Baker Mayfield. And while, trust me, I'm not a Baker Mayfield fan, hook 'em horns, still, this is a quarterback that you would naturally assume is going to be closer to league average on a week-to-week standpoint. And if Odell Beckham Jr. has already cemented the fact that he can see 25% of his team target share this season, I think this is a spot where you have to go through, you have to trade for Odell. I mean, even if you trade for him now, and then we know that he has it in the range of outcomes to go through and just see those random spike weeks, and you sell him after a random spike week before Jarvis Landry comes back, that's still a spot that I think would be very profitable. Now, our next wide receiver is going to be someone that was on our list this past week as well. We're going to continue to include him on here, A.J. Brown. I mean, with A.J. Brown, I'll say, if you are an 0-4 roster, if you're 1-3, no, of course, you cannot be going through and trading for an injured player. You're just going through and trying to find as much production as you can for this week right now, because it's incredibly important that you walk away with a win. However, if you are 4-0, if you are 3-1, and we're kind of shaping up our roster to have the most upside possible for later on in the season, and we can maybe afford a loss right now, the idea of going and trading for A.J. Brown is a no-brainer. I mean, this is a wide receiver that is currently in his 3rd season in the NFL. I mean, you're not expecting that he comes out and takes a significant step back from what we have seen previously. He was someone that, yes, with the addition of Julio Jones, you can maybe question the exact role that he's going to have on the offense, but he actually led this team in targets in weeks 1 and 2. And I know he was disappointing through those first 2 weeks. But it was a 2-week sample. It was a 2-week sample. There's no reason to go through and overreact based on that alone. We actually had him in 2020 as the wide receiver 7 on a points per game basis. Keep in mind, this was someone dealing with a knee injury at the same time. And he did so with not necessarily a ton of targets in this offense. He did so based on the efficiency that he had. I mean, you're looking at A.J. Brown, and he was one of the most efficient wide receivers in the NFL in both 2020 and in 2019. I mean, if you're looking at him, he actually had over 10 yards per target in 2020. He had like 11 yards per target. Maybe 12. He actually looked like he had almost 13 yards per target in 2019. The efficiency's through the roof. He led this team with targets through the first 2 weeks. This is still someone that's an elite level wide receiver. Don't be expecting that all of a sudden he's worse now that he's 24 years old. Now, our next wide receiver here will be Amari Cooper. And with Amari Cooper, we're going to keep it simple. This is someone that dealt with a rib injury in weeks 2 and 3. He dealt with an injury this past week where he actually left the game for a short duration, came back in. So if you're looking at the overall volume, yes, it's skewed. I mean, the season-long numbers aren't that bad with Amari Cooper just because he was so dominant in week 1. But I think right now, a lot of people are worried what you've had over the past 3 weeks. I mean, you've had Dalton Schultz and Blake Jarwin, and especially the running backs going through and seeing a ton of volume, a ton of work in this offense. That's not necessarily going to be the case every single week. While the Dallas Cowboys defense has been incredibly impressive, I still don't necessarily view this defense as one of the top premier defenses in the NFL. I think there's still a ton of potential for Dak Prescott in this offense to get into shootouts. Amari Cooper, I mean, has been someone outproducing CeeDee Lamb while injured. I mean, here with Amari Cooper, this is someone this past week played like 20 less snaps than CeeDee Lamb because he left with that small hamstring injury. Then he came back later on in the game and played 20 less snaps, played essentially half the snaps CeeDee Lamb did, still was more productive. So yeah, you can worry about CeeDee Lamb right now, but Amari Cooper, I don't think you can. I think you go through and you buy him low just because when he's been healthy, he's been hyper productive. Now our next wide receiver is going to be someone fitting that same mold. Very easy. It was on our list last week. DeAndre Hopkins. Going to keep it brief here with Hopkins. I mean, he was dealing with a rib injury in week 3. Keep in mind, in week 3, this was someone that was a game time decision. Okay, he was a game time decision. He almost didn't even go. And then this past week, I mean, yes, we always knew that he was going to be available in week 4, but still at the end of the day, that rib wasn't 100% healthy. And this is also a situation. He was going up against Jalen Ramsey. Okay, so pretty much he had just a squeeze from a tough matchup, from an injury. But going forward, if anything, I think you should be very excited with what you have from DeAndre Hopkins, going in that same exact range as Calvin Ridley in drafts this season. I'm not moving either wide receiver. You're looking at Hopkins here, and maybe you just get more excited based on what you've seen from Kyler Murray in this Arizona Cardinals passing offense. You shouldn't be viewing AJ Green as a wide receiver that's all of a sudden going to be coming out and being a wide receiver 2 in fantasy. That role is going to go right back to DeAndre Hopkins, where Hopkins historically, I mean, we have like 8 seasons under our belt where DeAndre Hopkins is averaging 10 targets per game. Don't necessarily just take all that production, the entire 8-year sample that we have, that's hundreds of games, throw it out the window and go, okay, well, DeAndre Hopkins, you've been bad the past 3. He's been dealing with an injury, and he's only really been bad the past 2 games. And go through by DeAndre Hopkins. I think this is really your last chance to do so. And our last wide receiver, going to be a lot cheaper than some of the other guys in this list, will be T. Higgins here. With T. Higgins, yes, coming back from this shoulder injury, looks like you should be good to go on Sunday. At the same time, he was very productive through the first 2 weeks. Now, I know the Cincinnati Bengals offense doesn't really look like they're going to lean on the pass, but the schedule is about to get significantly worse for Cincinnati. They're going to have some much tougher matchups where this Bengals defense, we still know, is a very bad defense. I think that you're going to see T. Higgins coming in and automatically taking these targets away from Tyler Boyd. Now, yes, I want to address that Jamar Chase is ahead of T. Higgins in our rest of season rankings right now. I mean, that's not how it was coming into the year. Jamar Chase has been incredibly productive, but I still think this is a wide receiver 1A, wide receiver 1B situation. Don't overlook the fact that T. Higgins was great in the first 2 weeks that we had him before that shoulder injury. And also, I think the Cincinnati Bengals with Joe Burrow look pretty damn good right now. Now, thank you. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. Please go down there, drop that like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. When you do so, get entered in to win a Fantasy Flock Network hat. And also, make sure you go use promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy for additional entries every single day until the end of the season to win a Fantasy Flock Network hat. Also, get in a draft with us over there. Also, look at some player props. When you make that $10 deposit, you get a max deposit bonus. You get us one step closer to our goal, where if we get 10,000 signups, we get to fly people to Tampa, Florida to go to that Bucs game with us. And also, you support the channel. Birthday's on Sunday. There's nothing you could do more to support this channel. And yeah, that's all I got for y'all. Really hope y'all have a great day, and I hope I see y'all on the live stream tonight.